This is Horror Sucks, the podcast where we watch horror movies and tell you why they suck. I'm Ashley Atkins, and coincidentally, the day after The Ginger Dead Man came out, we are making a gingerbread house.
Yes, I'm Carter Rhodes, and I am the pioneer of the gingerbread recipe. What was that look? I said I'm Carter Rhodes and actually did this whole, look. I didn't.
When I went to take a sip, the glass hit my front two teeth.
Oh, jeez.
Which is the word. You've had that before,
Yeah,
right?
but you just threw me for such a loop. I was like, I didn't say anything.
Just your name really
I was like,
grinds
there's no way I fucked that up.
No, this is the second time I've accidentally hit myself with something tonight. Earlier, I slammed is not the right word. I closed the cabinet door on my ear, which was not fun.
I wasn't looking, so I can't confirm how she managed to do that, but...
I was just standing too close to the cabinet as I went to close
ear,
it. Well, my ear was in the way. It's not with my ear. It crashed it into my ear. Oh, that's a face.
Tonight, we are joined by our friend... So, we are reviewing Evil Dead 2013 tonight, and tonight it's a very special episode just because we get to review it as a treat. We both like this movie.
Yeah, this is a great movie.
It's quite nice to, every so often root for an underdog movie.
Yes, I'm very excited about it. Before we get into it, though, we do have a special announcement, and that is the winner of our contest. Our winner was Mark Ramos. You can check him out on Instagram at Mark Loves Horror. And we're very excited to send him his curated box of movies.
Mm-hmm. We can't tell you exactly what it is until we know it arrives. But again, the theme is unusual sequels. So we'll tell you what it was once he gets it.
Yes, and we'll probably be doing another contest pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
So keep your ears out for that.
Yeah, for next Christmas.
Pretty soon.
Yeah. By the time you hear this, it's probably going to be Christmas again.
Okay, so that's all I had to say. Anything else to include?
Glass Onion should be coming out.
That's exciting.
It will have come out on Netflix a couple days by now.
Yeah.
I will say if you haven't seen it over this past weekend, you absolutely should. It's such a good movie. It's just as good as Knives Out, if you liked Knives Out.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to watching it. So, I'll let you know how it is next week.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I will be watching The Boy 2 this weekend. Have you seen The Boy 1?
I have seen The Boy 1. I saw it in theaters on a date.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, but not on a date. So, I'm just going to tell you guys what happens in The Boy, because it's a garbage movie. No one cares. So, the whole movie, it's like this doll thing that seems to be a ghost. It seems to have the spirit of this creature. And...
A girl is nannying a doll.
Yes.
But it moves on its own and she doesn't know why or how.
Yes. And there's things to suggest that there's ghosts. Is random items will move or be turned off.
Things actually happen.
She'll
physically
feel a presence, stuff like that.
At one point she gets a call from him.
Yeah. So eventually, because she went into it treating it like it's a doll, I'm just gonna goof off.
Yeah.
But as soon as she started actually treating the doll like a child and actually babysitting it, things started going well. So she's like, you know what? I'm just not even gonna question this. It's working. I'm not in danger, so let's do it. And eventually, it's revealed. Someone smashes the doll, and it's revealed that the character that died in a fire that we assumed was their spirit haunting the house was actually, they're still alive, living in the walls. And so that was the big plot twist.
Living in the walls with a mask on.
Yes. So that, imagine, pretty much all the movie had going for it was that twist. Imagine a whole movie without that. That's what I'm going to be doing this weekend.
I look forward to hearing your review.
If it's good, we're gonna be watching it next week.
Great.
So, let's tell you guys about how this podcast works.
For those of you who are new here, thanks for joining. But what we kind of do is we'll go over the plot, then we give some fun facts, we discuss our favorites in the good, our pains in the bad, and what freaked us out in the spooky. And then we give you the Joseph D'Estasio Memorial Line highlight. Then we give our impressions and an overall rating.
So, it's my turn to do the plot.
Carter picked this movie.
Yes. So first I'm just going to do a very brief overview of Evil Dead. Evil Dead was made in like 1980. It was shot with like, I don't know,
it was
50 grand worth of budget.
Yeah, it had an extremely low budget.
Borrowed from director Sam Raimi's family mostly. By the way, that is the same Sam Raimi that most recently directed Doctor Strange, Something of Madness. Multiverse of Madness?
I think it's just Doctor Strange in the Multiverse.
No, it's like Mouth of Madness. Anyway, same Sam Raimi who directed the 3 Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. And it stars one of his best friends, Bruce Campbell, who you also would likely know from any movie Sam Raimi has ever directed. He loves his buddy, and so he fits him in whenever he can in a cameo. In the first Spider-Man, Bruce Campbell was the guy who announced the Man Spider. And he's like, that's stupid. It's Spider-Man. That was Bruce Campbell. I don't remember in the other 2 Spider-Man movies, but in the most recent Doctor Strange, he was the pizza roll guy. I don't know if anyone saw that movie at this table.
The most recent Doctor Strange?
Yeah, they're bouncing from dimension to dimension, and they stop. And
I saw like the first maybe like 10 minutes, but I stopped. And it is, you're right, Multiverse of Madness.
Okay, so they stop at one dimension, and this dude has like a food cart, and it's pizza rolled up. And Doctor Strange is like, pizza rolls? And she's like, you're not gonna believe it, but you're actually in the only dimension that doesn't have pizza rolls. Or they're called like pizza balls or something. Is they were circular. So anyway, Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi directed the original, and at its core, the plot is just a group of friends go to a cabin way in the middle of nowhere. They find this book, they read from it, and this demon creature shows up, and one by one kills them, possesses them. Part of what makes it famous is it's very campy. It's a very fun movie.
It is fun.
At one point, Bruce Campbell, his arm gets cut off, and he has to fight it. By the way, the second Evil Dead movie, Evil Dead 2, was
Which
essentially...
I've never seen.
It was essentially, they just re-released... They remade the original, but with a higher budget. So the plots are nearly identical. Bruce Campbell's in both of them. So it's hard to follow continuity in it because it's kind of just the same movie.
It's just the repeat.
Yeah. Let's see. So another reason that Evil Dead was good was since they were so low on money, they got really creative with filming.
Yeah.
They had what was called a Ramacam. And by the way, this is in the days of film cameras where it's like 50 grand for a camera. They were renting it. If they broke it, they were screwed. But they wanted to do a shot where the camera breaks through the window. And so what they did was they got a 2x4, screwed the camera onto it, and set up 2 boards to make a kind of battering ram just out of sight of the camera. And so then they could smash through the window with it without damaging the camera. They would do all sorts of stuff like that. Like, one of them was a kind of canoe rig so that they could film in the water. Mm-hmm. My personal favorite is, I don't think it was Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell personally, but what they would do is they got the camera, mounted it onto a 2x4. One person grabbed one end, another person grabbed the other, and they would just sprint along the forest.
It looks like someone's walking.
Well, it doesn't look like something's walking. It's moving so fast and
oh, got it.
Swerving in a way that makes it look like an incorporeal kind of demon darting around. So that movie, if there are any amateur filmmakers out there, watch Evil Dead. Yeah. That will... It will make you a better filmmaker. It teaches you to be creative and to have fun with it.
Not only watch the film, but actually look into the lore of how they did things. Mm-hmm.
And Bruce Campbell wrote a fucking amazing book called If Chins Could Kill. It's so fascinating. it's basically just behind the scenes talk. He's talking about how there's a big gap between Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2. And one of the reasons is they got the film, they got the money, and they're in LA, and they're like, it's gorgeous here. we want to go to the beach. We're not... So they're like, yeah, we really struggled to keep motivation. But on a more personal level, I love Evil Dead because I still don't think it's been published, but I was told I was going to get a paper published where I broke down this movie, Evil Dead 2013, and explained why it wasn't as bad as people said it was. So that's enough background. Let's get into the plot. So the movie starts with this girl in the woods. She gets grabbed and she wakes up tied with barbed wire to a pole. And they're like reading some ritual to her and they're about to set her on fire and she's freaking out. And then when it becomes clear that she can't stop them, she kind of reveals that she's a demon. Her eyes change and they have to kill her. So a couple of years later, in the same cabin in which she was set on fire, David arrives to the cabin with his girlfriend because his sister, Mia, is a drug addict. It's implied to be heroin. She is quitting cold turkey. And they just need to find some place, if you've ever seen Train Spotting, you know what I'm talking about. They need to find some place where she can just detox. She throws her drugs down the well, and the movie goes on. There's 5 people there. David, his sister Mia, and then other people who aren't super important. But Mia is starting to lose it with the withdrawal. She smells like death, and no one else will smell it, but... Eventually, they trace the smell to the basement where they find a bunch of dead, like, cats hung up in a, what's the word I'm looking for, ritualistic way.
Kind of, but it was also...
They said it wasn't like... voodoo, but when I say voodoo, you're thinking, you have the right visual image.
Yeah, I mean, I guess sacrificial is kind of the word, but it also very much gave the vibe of a meat locker.
Yeah. You can see the burnt pole that she was tied to. She was no longer there.
Her hair was there, though.
Was it? I didn't know this. So they find a book called the Naturum de Monto. And so Eric, and this was explained to me, I have not found a source on this to confirm it, but someone once told me that Eric was a demonologist in college, and that's why he was so, like, open to reading it, is because... it's right up his alley, and it makes sense. No one even tells him not to. He just does because he's fascinated by that stuff.
Yeah, I think Olivia's like, "Hey, cut the crap."
Like, yeah, but then he does it in his room because, like, of course he's gonna read it. That thing's fascinating.
I guess that makes a lot more sense if that is correct.
So, he reads a passage from the book, which seems to summon some kind of malevolent entity. Mia sees this creature, freaks out, and just is like, okay, I'm going through so much withdrawal, I'm hallucinating, I gotta get out of here. But the group is like, okay, look, Mia, last time you did this, you didn't quit, and then you OD'd and almost died. So we're not going to let you leave. You're staying here until you're sober.
I think at this point, she realized that she wasn't just hallucinating from the OD, that she wanted to keep doing it, she just couldn't do it here.
Right. Right. But she
at first she thought she was hallucinating.
To the friends, it sounds like classic drug addict say anything to get your fix.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it's not. She's realizing that it's more than just her hallucinations.
Is the bargaining of no, I'm gonna keep doing it. It just needs to be a different place.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mia steals a car, and as she's driving, the entity stands in her way, so she crashes it. She runs away from it, and eventually the entity catches up with her, and a possessed vine enters her, is the nice way to put it.
Yeah.
She's sexually assaulted by a vine. So she's just kind of catatonic at this point, very disturbed. And it's very, there isn't really a break, so it's kind of hard to explain what happens, but essentially Mia uses the shower to burn herself really badly so that people would, so they would take her to the hospital. It's quite clever, actually. And then it was rained out. They couldn't get through. The road was covered in water. So they come back. Mia has grabbed the shotgun that they found, shoot her brother David. While they're scrambling for the shotgun, she throws up on this girl Olivia's face. Then they just pretty much throw her straight into the basement, and they're done with that. Mia plays not much of a role at that point. So Olivia goes into the bathroom to wash off, and that's when like the blood got into her, and now she's possessed. So she starts carving her face off, and then her boyfriend Eric comes in because he hears a noise, and he slips, and then she stabs him a bunch, but he survives. So they're like, okay, we should probably just leave. And while that's happening, Natalie, David's girlfriend, ends up being lured over by Mia. Mia bites her. Now she's infected. She cuts her arm off, but that's not enough. She's now a demon, and she shoots Eric a bunch with a nail gun. Eric gets, like, screwed in the...
Poor Eric.
She just beats the shit out of him with a crowbar. It's rough. And they finally kill her, and they're like, okay, we gotta get out of here. That's that. We're gonna burn this house down. Mm-hmm. And as he's about to do that, he hears Mia singing, and he's like, she's still there. So he has this great plan, because the book does say, here are the ways you can stop it. You can burn it, dismember it, or I don't know.
Cleanse it by burying it in the ground.
Yeah, burying it alive. And those are the ways to stop it. So he's like, I got a plan. So he MacGyver's a defibrillator using 2 heroin needles and a car battery.
They weren't heroin needles.
Right,
they were needles from the nurse that
right.
was administering medication. She was being monitored.
Yeah. I mean,
you've brushed over the fact that there was a registered
there was a nurse
there.
and I believe a doctor. Wasn't Natalie a doctor?
No.
Okay.
No, she thought Olivia was a doctor.
Oh,
and she
I
said,
see.
no, I'm a nurse.
Okay. By the way, while this is happening, Eric is like stabbed 5 different places, literally just leaning against a Jeep, waiting to be driven to safety. David goes down to the basement with the plan of knocking her out so he can bury her alive, but just a little bit. And she gets the jump on him. She's drowning him because they're in like knee-deep water.
Yeah.
And that's when Eric shows up. He kind of bonks her, knocks her out, but not before she stabs him. So poor fucking Eric. Let's see. David takes her up above the cabin, buries her alive a little bit, then digs her back up and tries to revive her. And it works. And they're like, hey, let's live happily ever after. And he's like, oh, gotta get my keys or whatever. And he goes into the house one last time. And now Eric's reanimated. And he mortally wounds David. David sets the whole house on fire. And Mia escapes. The end. Just kidding. It starts raining blood. And this abomination, it's called, crawls out of the ground. Because it needed 5 souls. And Mia, I guess, rounded up.
Yeah.
Arguably, it never got her soul, but...
It kind of did,
yeah,
because
sure.
she kind of died.
Sure, yeah. So let's round up and say it did. So after a prolonged battle, Mia, her arm is... She has a chainsaw and her arm is pinned under a car. And so she rips her arm off and chainsaws the abomination, and the movie ends with her surviving. Did I get everything?
I think you got everything.
God, let's hope so. Tell us some fun facts.
Oh, some fun facts. All right, so let me tell you about this movie. First things first, it was directed by... What?
Nothing. I was like, I already said Sam Raimi, but I forgot this was 2 Italian brothers, right?
So, yes.
Mario and Luigi.
It was directed by Fede Alvarez, who is known for, let's see.
I think he's actually Spanish, come think of it.
Uruguayan.
Interesting. Is that what do you call that? Denonym?
Yeah.
Denonym?
Yeah, it says nationality, Uruguayan and American.
Okay.
So, he is known for Evil Dead, Don't Breathe, and The Girl in the Spider's Web.
No shit, Don't Breathe. And that's the same actress.
It is, yes. So, all right, so this movie stars Jane Levy, who...
No relation to Eugene Levy.
No.
I only say that because Eugene Levy and his son are both in Schitt's Creek, and I have a
So is his daughter.
with my mom.
His
Really?
daughter's Twyla.
No. Oh, Twyla. Huh.
Yeah.
That must suck.
That's why they're in a commercial together right now, too.
I'd be pissed if my dad was an actor and Maddie got the role of dad's daughter and I got the role of waiter.
Pretty funny. So, but Jane Levy is known for Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, Evil Dead, Suburgatory, Don't Breathe, and a few others.
So just to be clear, the Evil Dead you listed was the movie we are currently talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I did. All right, so then we have Shiloh Fernandez, who plays David, and he is known for Red Riding Hood, Return to Sender, and Private Property. Then we've got Jessica Lucas as Olivia, and she's known for Big Mamas, Like Father, Like Son, and The Resident. And we have Elizabeth Blackmore as Natalie, the girlfriend, and she is known for August Creek and Skin Deep. Oh, and she was in The Vampire Diaries. And then we've got Lou Taylor Pucci. What?
Fun fact, all the characters' names, David, Eric, Mia, Olivia, and Natalie, form the word demon.
Yes. That was on my fun facts list. Thank you for covering that for me. So we've got Lou Taylor Pucci, who played Eric, and he's known for Spring, Thumbsucker, and Carries. So 90% of this movie was shot in chronological order. This was done because a lot of film takes place in a controlled environment, and the level of blood and violence gets worse and worse as the film progresses.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, actually.
By shooting in order, the filmmakers could throw blood at the wall and not have to worry about needing it clean. According to reports in the press, the film used 70 gallons of fake blood. In an interview, Alvarez said they used 50 gallons for the final scene alone.
Yeah.
This is compared to the 200 to 300 gallons used in the original. I actually like the comparison. That's a lot of blood.
230 gallons in the original?
200 to 300 gallons in the original.
I don't remember there being that much blood in the original.
Yeah.
There's a whole scene in which it's raining blood in this movie, and we couldn't even get to, like,
70,000. Sorry, 70,000 gallons of blood. Did I say 70 gallons?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. 70,000 gallons of blood.
Holy shit.
So
70,000 gallons compared to 200 gallons?
Good lord. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Lot more
yeah.
sense. Sorry, I
was like, what did they do with all those scenes with the blood?
So, when producer Rod Tappet suggested the possibility of a remake to Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, Raimi was favorable, and Campbell was less enthusiastic. Raimi thought that Evil Dead was exactly the sort of film that could be successful, updated, and reimagined.
Which is what this movie is.
Right. Campbell was not happy to pass on his iconic role of Ash. He relented, but when he heard that the film was using all new characters, he was on board.
Yeah. I'm with him. I'd be pissed if anyone else was Ash, but if Ash wasn't in it, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. So although he has a background in CGI, Alvarez chose to go with practical effects for the film's visuals, mainly out of tribute to what Sam Raimi achieved with a very limited budget. So the broken necklace found outside the cabin, it can be seen resting in the shape of the skull. This is the same as the original. The illustration of the abomination in the book is based on the poster artwork for the original film. The "You Are All Going to Die Tonight" scene has an overlay during Mia's screaming, and the one by one we will take you demonic voices from the original film.
I could tell there was a lot of overlay.
There are a lot, yes.
Either it's like whispers in the background, or a lot of times it's saying what the characters were saying in a deeper voice to add an element of like another dimension to it. But I did notice that. I wondered what they were saying.
Yeah, those are lines from the original film. Oh, last one. Lou Taylor Pucci, Eric, wanted to wear his glasses and his hair the way he did as a tribute to the 80s.
He did look very 80s, and he did look just like our buddy Ian.
Yeah.
long blonde hair, glasses, beard and mustache.
That's in my good.
Okay, right. So now let's talk about what we liked about this movie. the good. Dun dun dun. If you don't mind, I'd love to start.
Go ahead.
This is almost exclusively what I wrote my paper on. The cinematography of this movie is unbelievable. It's the first time I watched it, I thought it was dumb, and then I watched for the first time the original Evil Dead. And then when I rewatched this movie, it was a whole new level of context. They reuse a lot of the same scenes or shots. They'll have the like shot I mentioned of them speeding along the forest floor. They had a Ramocam. They had it was essentially all of the greatest hits except with better quality equipment. There were shots, and it even beyond just taking those shots, it had the same creativity. Like there's one shot, Smile. They probably didn't steal it because it's not like the most original shot in the world, but it's an upside down shot of a car approaching, and as it drives by, the camera rights itself to follow.
Yeah.
There's plenty of dolly zooms, and they're not just an excuse to use dolly zooms, is some of them are in a really, like when she first sees the creature, it's pretty well hidden in the forest. The dolly zoom forces your eyes to focus on where it is. I was really impressed by that. It was a very subtle, like, way of highlighting her.
That was a really good shot, yeah. I agree.
Then there's shots from the basement where it, like, is very much meant to look like a POV shot, is it's kind of peeking around a corner, not explicitly saying that there's something down there, but enough to really give you the vibe of an entity down there. It really was incredible how much they were able to capture of the original.
This movie really understands subtlety in the best way. You know, a lot of movies try to do those things where it's like, oh, it's around the corner, but they just give it away because they don't know really how to do it. This movie just does such like subtle things that's like, oh, I'm instantly captured by that. And it's absolutely true. It's also, you can tell that the directors and like the whole team really had a lot of respect for the original, and really this felt, watching both felt like a tribute to the original more than anything else.
But it also followed the fact that throughout the franchise, it seems to have a level of almost disrespect for like the previous movies. Of like, yeah, last time we raised them via a book, but this time it's a tape player. Just don't worry about it. Is it had that level like, yes, new characters. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. There's no continuity. Just have fun.
Exactly.
And that was just so perfectly. The one issue I really have with it is it shouldn't have been called Evil Dead. It should have been called Evil Dead 3. Because it fits so perfectly into the franchise that calling it a remake is almost insulting to it.
That's a good point, actually. Knowing that like Evil Dead 1 and original Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 followed that format, it would have fit. Yeah. Well, it would have fit to all the fans of the series, but I don't know if it would have attracted new watchers, and I think that's part of the reason.
Yeah, I guess so. So I also really liked the cold open. It actually starts with them beating the demon, and I thought that was pretty good because I guess there's a way in which it could be seen as proving the demon has a weakness, but to me, I thought it gave a level of like credibility. I didn't feel like they were just people just fighting to survive because our prey brain won't let us just like go limp and die.
Right.
It felt like you guys can do it. It has been done before.
It gave you hope.
Exactly. Here is how you can do it. You will have to kill your sister, but if you want, you can get out of here. Right.
We've seen it happen before, so you're really rooting for those characters at that point.
But then on top of that, the fact that when they found it, it was like abandoned is still a level of like,
wait, what happened?
Did they get out? Is like, we know in a one short term they escaped, but we don't know if there was another demon or what.
Right. It adds a whole second level that doesn't need to be explained because that's part of the kind of spookiness of it.
So the concept of the movie, which is like the girl being like intentionally isolated and voluntarily putting herself in a position where people won't believe her is incredible.
It works so well.
It's so unbelievably like such a complex situation, but it was so simple to grasp. It's like, oh, like, yeah, she can't leave. She's going cold turkey.
Right.
Yeah, they're not gonna let her leave. She looks like she's gonna lie and say whatever it takes to get more drugs.
Yeah. It's believable of like the friends' actions as well. Like it sets it up so perfectly that for both their actions.
And it sets that up. I'm always a big fan of whenever people voluntarily isolate themselves in horror movies.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it predates the cell phone, but The Shining. I'm trying to think of a good example in like cell phone times. Like,
well, I guess The Menu kind of did that. They isolated themselves on an island.
That's a good point. Yeah, The Menu definitely did that. I very much enjoy that, like, people, I think The Invitation might have done it, where people give up their cell phones because they're like, yeah, it's a friend dinner. We're not gonna be on my phone at dinner. There was a lot of really, really good sound design. At times, it was a bit much, but they would, like, there would be, like, a burst of sound, like a gun, and then the audio would cut out. And it was, like, a level of peace that really emphasized... Like the scene I'm thinking of is Mia fired a shotgun at David, it grazed his shoulder, and as soon as the gun went off, it cut, the audio cut except for, like, wind noises.
It lingers.
Yeah. And so it's like, it kind of rings in your ears a little bit, and then it bursts down the door with the Ramacam. The audio cuts back in, and she's screaming. It was really, really good.
On that audio note, in the final scene, one thing I guess this isn't really the level of audio, but they had a siren going, and that is for exclusively our pleasure. But to me, I loved it so much because it felt less of like in the movie, because it wasn't loud. It was just it was a background noise, and it more so just felt like a like a spinning thing in the back of my head that I was like, yes. This is like final showdown. I'm ready. When I was in high school, I was doing a show choir set where during like the hype song, we had like that siren going, and it just got me like that level of amped, but it felt disconnected from the scene, so like it just scratched my brain real good. I loved it.
Do you know what that's called, when there's something that the characters can hear that the audience can hear, or when the audience can hear but the characters can't? It's called diegetic. Is when there's a sound that the characters can hear, that's diegetic. When it's a sound they can't hear, like background music, that's called non-diegetic.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just really liked it because it wasn't like the music or anything that was still going. It just like every now and again the siren would go off and you're like, I'm ready. Like a next level of action and the next level.
Yeah.
It kept it.
The sound it did was really good at
it built layers. It just attention wise, like. Normally, I don't like those kind of things, but they just did it so well.
It would crank up a lot of the background noise, like the rain and stuff, before jump scares.
Yeah.
And it does it in a way... It probably doesn't sound very intelligent the way I'm describing it, but they would do it in a way that would help build to the intensity.
Yeah.
And in a bit of a cheesy way, which is faithful to the franchise. There was a lot of really good jump scares, too. I
thought there was a decent amount of them, yeah.
I didn't jump as much this time, but the first time I watched it, I was like, it freaked me out.
Yeah, there was the one, I mean, this is my spooky, so I don't want to give it away. There's one that really, I forgot about, that was really good. One,
yeah. That one's gotten me a couple times, rather. I mean, I guess this is a facet of the setup, but the logic of this movie is fantastic, is like, they're isolated, and I'm not like, why are you idiots out in the middle of nowhere? Yeah. That makes sense. Why are you idiots not leaving? No, that makes sense. Mia is clearly, from their point of view, that it's classic junkie talk.
Conceptually, this movie is so good. Speaking of, like, Mia, though, do you have more to say on the concept?
No,
Okay.
I feel like I covered most of it.
Let's transition. I want to talk about the acting, specifically Mia's.
Mia's acting is fantastic. I can't agree with you on that.
Phenomenal. There at one point, so she's realized she's seeing things. She's kind of in a fetal position on the end of her bed, but like upright. So she has her knees tucked under her chest, and her face is kind of cast in shadow and light, and it's good framing, to be honest. But she looks like her acting is phenomenal because she's talking about how she's losing her mind, like all this stuff is
She has
going on. She needs,
real
like,
level of desperation is you need to get me out of
she's
here.
absolutely desperate, and you cannot tell whether it is withdrawal symptoms or that she is panicking. And it is so good of just being on that line that it could be either. That scene haunts me more than anything else. Like, it was
it's
so
funny
good.
because a lot of the acting was pretty plain outside of Mia, who killed it.
She just put her...
Yeah.
I mean, I think she's the most successful out of all of them, and it shows why. She did such a good job. Really hit it for me.
On that note, the movie had a fascinating parallel with possession and addiction.
Yeah.
There were a lot of lines where I could tell that they were getting at addiction. They're like, this thing is attached to her soul. It's never going to let her go. It's going to, like, she will lie. She will do anything to try to trick you. You cannot listen to her. And it was the same way they were talking at the start of the movie.
It also is a very honest portrayal of withdrawal.
They really got addiction.
Yeah. It was really great.
And I do want to say, I've used the word junkie a couple times. I'm pretty pro-addiction, just to be clear.
Addiction is a disease.
Yeah, I believe addiction's a disease. I use junkie because I've heard the term junk refer to heroin.
Okay.
You know, obviously a junkie would be someone who uses junk then. I don't mean it as an insult.
I think what you mean by pro-addiction is that you support people who are suffering with that illness
absolutely,
and don't
absolutely. I do that
put
too.
them down with your language.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I do that too. Yeah.
Okay.
I support that too. Yeah. What?
Too.
Yeah, no. I also support that. I also support them.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
people. Yeah, I'm pro-addiction and I support addicts.
What are you saying with pro-addiction? It sounds like you're pro people like indulging in their addictions.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So you're
I don't know.
going into
We're not getting into complex drug law. I'm just doing a bit.
Okay. I see. I'm gonna cut it out. Anyways, but yeah, I think it's a honest portrayal of withdrawal, and I feel like in the friends' motivations all make sense. Like it just works. It works so well, and it's like kind of nice to see a remake that, even though it's a remake, it's doing its own thing. It's not an exact copy. And I think a lot of remakes we've seen have just kind of been exact copies, and that's what we don't like about it.
Yeah. This movie is a fantastic remake. This is how, if you wanted to remake a movie, watch this.
Scream could never.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it draws on a lot of elements unique to this franchise.
Yeah.
And it's possible that it's doing that because it can, but it's also just a unique situation where it is allowed to, copy it and have it look like an homage, rather than if Scream were to copy scenes, I'd be like, oh, cool, garbage. You're just taking the original.
That's true.
Is Evil Dead was founded upon this kind of, like, campy, like, silly almost.
It's a good level too of bringing the camp into a serious note. I felt like I was like, like level wise, it felt good
because it was updated to modern horror, which definitely takes itself more seriously, perhaps to a fault, but it really was a serious movie that was able to keep the creativity, even though it did lose the humor. And that was a fine trade-off for me.
It makes sense. It genuinely, like, you can watch it and be like, yeah. Anyways.
I liked the symmetry of her being defibrillated at the end, because the movie, it happens off screen, but the movie began because they explicitly said she had to be defibrillated because she overdosed.
Yeah.
And then they defibrillated her to bring her back to life. Again, that's another possession addiction parallel that I mentioned.
I didn't even notice. I didn't connect the dots of that. I like that.
Yeah. It was a pretty, like, in terms of color palette, it was a pretty dark and gray movie, but it wasn't colorless. There would be, like, it was a lot of green in the trees, and then the mist would come over, and it would be a dark kind of blue palette. But it was never, like...
I don't think a filter was put over it.
There was a movie we were watching recently.
The Forest.
Yeah, where
it
I'm
has
just
a blue filter.
I'm just like, everything in this is the same color.
Yeah.
This had a variety of colors, and yes, it did tend towards like dark gray and dark blue.
But you didn't mind it because you still got, I mean, Mia's hair is red, and you can tell that throughout the movie, which is nice. I also felt like they did a lot of, I wouldn't say they did a lot with light and dark, but they did a good job of just managing that everything was well lit.
Oh my god, yeah. It was such a relief. It was so cleverly... It was put in a position where they were never in the basement in light, and you were like, why is that happening? Is like, they would be standing in the light about to go into the basement, and then there'd be a shot from behind the stairs so you could see them, and then a shot again. And it was just very clever how they avoided putting themselves in a position where they had to make it clear they were using Hollywood lighting.
Right. Yeah, and there was never any, like, play with the light, and it wasn't missed. You know, it was very good. I really liked that. I also really liked everyone, when they were possessed, had a very specific way of moving. I don't know if you noticed it.
I didn't, actually.
So, they all kind of did the very, like, sort of static, quick movement, like...
Yeah.
You know, like that.
They would like twitch their neck and it would make like a cracking noise.
But even like their arms, it would move like super quickly, but super robotically. Not robotic, but like it would like chop and go, like as if someone like
choppy. Yeah.
Yeah, as if like you were arm wrestling and like you're trying to prevent your arm from going one way, and it's like, but they're winning. So there's like, it looks like there's resistance to their movements. It was so good. I noticed specifically with Olivia when she's on top of Eric trying to stab him, but you could see it throughout each of the characters as they got possessed. There was resistance to the movement. It was so good.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's all I had for the good, if you're ready to move on.
Yeah. The bad.
Number one is the blah, 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 blah scene. we were talking about it. Is this scene in which Mia has been attacked by the creature. She's in the process of becoming possessed, clearly. She's like, I need to get out of here. She's like, this thing attacked me in the woods, and I think it's in the room with us. And David's like, it's just me, Mia. And she's like, it's here. And eventually he leaves the room, and she hears a noise, and she looks across the room, and she sees a mirror. And under the bed, not like, I mean, it's clearly in her head, but the thing is hiding under the bed. She sees it in the mirror, and it, like, it doesn't make this noise, but it moves its mouth in a way that makes it clear that if it was making noise, that noise would be blah, 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 blah. It's just its tongue was moving in a horrifying way, and it just is not very scary.
No.
And it takes away from one of the best acted scenes in the movie, like really just the heart of the rising action.
Yeah, I agree.
There was a flashback when he was like touching the burning the burnt wood. He touches it, and there was a flashback to the beginning where they burned her. I was like, we know.
Yeah.
There's not much has happened. This isn't a hard movie to follow.
Mm-hmm. The thing that's biggest on my bad list is the dog dies.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, the biggest thing on my bad list is that she pees herself, and we get a very graphic image of that running down the leg.
I do actually have that on my list. I know it's probably realistic, but Stephen King does it a lot too. It's just not very dignified, and it does, especially when protagonists do it. I'm like, like, yeah, I'd probably pee myself too, but also don't. George R.R. Martin does it a lot, where in a good way, where he'll talk about characters like characters will die and then shit themselves.
Yeah.
But he goes out of his way to make sure that like good characters don't have that happen to them. And it was weird that this movie did that, however realistic it might have been.
It just made me uncomfy.
The key scene was done poorly, where she, like, is walking away and grabs the keys, and you just hear clink in the most obvious person grabbing their keys noise you've ever heard. And I was like, come on, guys, she clearly just took the keys. She could have, like, she had just ripped off her necklace, and there were beads falling on the ground. They could have done it cleverly, where that was, like, as she dropped it, she picked it up, and then you kind of got lost in the noise, but they didn't do that.
No.
Instead, you just heard clink, and it's like...
On that level of kind of stupidity, when they're trying to get into the cabin, and he's fiddling with the lock, and he's like, oh, I can't get it open, and then he just kind of pushes it, and someone had broken in, but what they did is, like, kind of carved out the bit of the door where the lock was attached to it, and the door swung in, and I was like, that would immediately open as soon as you pick up that lock.
A door swinging in already puts so much pressure on the wood around that lock. Is
like as soon as you approached it, you would notice that it's been broken into and giving in. And on that note, the place looks awful.
Yeah, it was a real shithole.
Oh, Mom would be so upset. It looks like this. And it was like, it sounds like Mom didn't pass away that long ago. Like, when was the last time you guys were here? I just was like kind of taken out of the realm a little bit at that point. Mm-hmm. Also, the door was disproportionately, like, weathered compared to the inside of the house. Like,
well, they replaced the rest of the house, but they left the door.
Like, the door just looked like it was built... It just looked like it was rotting, basically. Like, it looked like it belonged in a theme park on a haunted house door versus, like, this semi-ruined cabin. Like, I feel like it would not have a door that looked like that.
Mm. So my I was hoping to talk around this, but at some point we do have to. One of the bad scenes is the tree rape scene.
Yeah.
It's meant to portray, at least in the remake, it was like comical it was meant to be comedy in the original too. Because it was in both the Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2.
Right.
But in this one, it clearly is meant to feel violating as she's possessed, which is fair, and it is an homage to the original, but it just is distracting.
I kind of...
Even watching it at the time, I was like, oh, goodness.
Yeah, I appreciate the homage, but I don't like it, and I wish they would have done something different.
I think the swearing's kind of dumb for the demon,
yeah.
Because they'd like...
Well, it waits until the very last second before it starts really swearing, and then it just lays out a bunch of cuss words all at once.
Yeah, it's like, demons can say some horrific stuff, but when it's just... It really makes it seem like potty mouth is...
Yeah.
I swear plenty, but this creature was like... He's like, Mia? And it's like, Mia's dead, you fucking idiot! And it like...
Yeah, no,
it just seems weird. It didn't seem like an all-powerful demon would talk like that.
No, it just was so out of place, too, because we hadn't heard it swear until that moment, too.
It happened for a couple of... It happened for the...
Oh, it happened in the beginning, actually. Yeah.
It happened to me a couple times.
But it wasn't that aggressive, versus this was just, like, kind of appalling. Another thing I didn't like was just David as a character.
He was pretty plain.
He was plain, but also, like, I think his actions were the one that's, like, least reasonable. Mm-hmm. He just kind of behaves poorly. I understand that he feels guilty that he wasn't there to support Mia when their mom died, but I don't know. It just was, like, kind of like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah,
I was bored with him.
Plus, everyone being so cold to him affects the story. The acting and the characters were pretty plain. A lot of it was carried by their relationships to each other, namely Mia and David. And so everyone being so cold to David really affects how the story was told. They felt like one-dimensional characters when I get that they were supposed to look like just very guarded individuals, but...
It just really just had a negative impact.
Plus, the dialogue at times was weak too. They'd be like, I can't do this, instead of like killing someone. They a lot of just saying what they were feeling.
Definitely like moments like that took away from it, but
I'm gonna speed run a couple of minor points real
perfect.
quick. There was a lot of foreshadowing in the weapons of like early on. There's someone using a nail gun. You're like, oh boy, I wonder what that's gonna be. Natalie's using a like, what do you call that? Electric meat knife.
Yeah,
What do you call it?
electric knife.
Yeah, she's using bread knife, right? No.
No, electric knife.
Sure, electric knife. She's using that to carve like a roast, and we're like, oh boy, wonder what that's gonna be used for.
It's pretty random that they had this like nice roast in this cabin.
The demon makes some pretty dumb faces. Well, it's possessed. It just looks stupid. I don't even know how to describe it. The scene in which Mia burns herself in the shower, she turns up the heat, and it shows the water heater with a fire getting larger. Pretty sure that's not how water heaters work. Just an open flame.
A little campy in there. Those moments.
Don't think that was great. There's a lot of like filler demon noise that was really stupid. Like she'd be like talking to herself in the background during a fight, and it was just dumb nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, get your Sorry, the biggest minor complaint I have about this movie is the burying her alive as a technicality. The point of burning, dismembering, burying alive is that you kill this person for good.
Yeah.
They explicitly say this thing is attached to her soul like a parasite. You can't technically bury her and just that works. Is the reason that dismemberment and burning someone works is because it kills them irreparably.
Yeah. On that note, too, the scene where Natalie has to saw her arm off, and then she just kind of stands in the kitchen all embarrassed and is like, I had to. I was like, I hate you. I couldn't. Also, who brings their girlfriend on a weekend getaway to help their sister in sobriety?
Because Natalie hadn't met anyone at that point. She, like, had to be introduced to the friends.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me, being like, hey, babe, my sister's going cold turkey. Wanna come?
Yeah,
She didn't have a vested interest other than David. She clearly didn't know Mia.
Yeah, no, it was really odd.
Would that be the worst date you've ever been on?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like I've been on worse dates.
Yeah, no, I think, oh, hey, we're gonna just head over to my sister's intervention real quick. Like, wanna come along? I'd be like, no.
Just imagine everyone's reading their letters, and you get to you, and you're like, Mia, you seem like a really nice girl.
Your brother talks fondly of you.
Yeah. It's like, really just thought I was adding to the numbers here. Didn't think I'd be put on a spot.
It's odd that he brings it. Even I guess if they've been together for some time, it's like, hey, let's meet my sister while she goes. But even that's still weird.
There is
I
a
can meet
point.
her after.
There is a point in which it's like you've been dating someone for so long that it's weird that you don't invite them to your sister's cold turkey event. But
sure, but I don't think they were together.
They definitely didn't have the vibes. They didn't apply
that they'd been together for that long.
So, lastly, I'm not a huge fan of the, like, twitching that they do. I just didn't think it was very spooky.
The twitching, like, the facial twitching was not good, but the static movements were.
Yeah. And then, lastly, the face and eye effects were kind of done poorly.
Sure.
They had these, like, kind of, I don't know, almost yellowish eyes, but they weren't very haunting. It was very much like, look at these fake eyes.
Yeah, it was a little silly. The one thing I really didn't enjoy, besides the vomit scene, which was just, that's like one of my big things that I cannot. Someone says they're sick and I'm like, they're there tapping them on the shoulder as I stand 5 feet away with a nose plug because the smell is what gets me more than anything else. That and like when she has her arm underneath the car and she physically rips it and you can see the skin tearing. It just kind of didn't look great.
I thought it was good.
You thought it was good?
I don't know.
That's like one of those things I was like, nah. Oh, and the other thing too, the pacing of the movie was a little iffy.
I actually thought the pacing of the movie was really good. It was a very clear rising action throughout the movie, climax, like falling action. It was a very I thought it was a very uncomplicated movie. That's why
I started getting a little bored around the.
It's a 91 minutes.
I started getting bored. I had 20 minutes left to go, and I was like, I'm checked out. I'm forcing myself to watch this, but not in a bad way.
This is Ashley's ADHD. That movie was 91 minutes.
But I was like, I had 20 minutes left, and at that moment, I checked how much. And it wasn't, enough that I would turn it off. I was just watching myself, but it's the point where I start playing games on my phone. But then, 5 minutes later, it immediately hit me back in. I was like, okay. But, so the pacing towards the mid-end was I was getting a little bored, but...
Real quick, just fun vomit story.
Oh, God, we're coming back to this?
Yeah, my friend... Back in college, I had the party house, so we all went there one night, and I guess Joe just didn't have a lot to eat, or maybe just drank more than usual.
Oh, Joe.
But, that Joe. He's coming for New Year's. The Joe that was on this podcast.
He's alive?
Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. Joey DeStasio, wink, wink, is going to be there. Anyway, God rest his soul, Joe, he got too drunk and he was throwing up. Apologizing to our friend Oliver for reasons we don't know to this day, is Joe doesn't know why he was doing it. He's like, I'm sorry, Oliver, and Oliver's on the other side of the room like, what? So I'm like, Liam's doing the equivalent of holding his hair back. Joe had a short haircut back then. Mm-hmm. And he's like, Car, can we open a window? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm just sitting on the couch on the far end of the room. It's crazy? I have such a weak sense of smell. I don't even smell Joe from over here. I could be sitting next to him and it just wouldn't bother me. And Liam's like, could I? That's great, Kurt. And I'm like, the next morning we were getting breakfast. I was like, you know what? Thinking about it, I should have offered to switch seats with you. It makes sense in hindsight, but at the time didn't even occur to me. It wasn't even a greedy thing. It wasn't even I wanted my spot. It just didn't even occur to me.
So, I have a fun vomit story. Oh, jeez, did I lose it already? Well, how much time do we have left on those?
20 minutes.
Okay. Oh gosh, where did
Can we save it for after the spooky? Because that's when we know how much time we'll have left.
That's true.
Oh yeah. The spooky. Actually, why don't you go? Because there's a chance we have the same one.
Okay, my spookies is a jump scare, which I usually don't like to do, but it got me. Mm-hmm. So it's the scene where she crashes the car.
Yep, that was my first one. Yep,
nice.
That was why I wanted you to go.
So she tries to drive away because her friends don't believe her. I didn't love this. She's freaking out in the car as she's driving, and I'm like, girl, stop. You've gotten away at this point. But she sees the demon in the road, so she swerves and she goes into the water. First of all, great
into a bog.
Right. Into a bog. Great scene of her going into the bog, cutting, hitting her head in a hard cut. Mm-hmm. I liked it. But then she gets out of the car and starts swimming, and she's just kind of looking around what's going on.
Cut with footage of the zoomy cam along the thing
right.
From a distance, so you get the sense of a thing approaching quite some distance away.
Yeah, and it's something pops out out of the bog.
In the foreground, the focus is on the background. The focus is
on the back, and it pops right in front of you, and it was very good.
There's 3 different areas you think a jump scare might come from, and it's the equivalent of someone in the room jump scaring you.
Yeah,
it gets me every single time I watch that movie.
I'm glad. I thought you were going to make fun of me for picking that and picking a jump scare.
That was probably the best jump scare I've ever seen.
It's so good.
Probably better than any.
Really?
Yeah.
It is so phenomenal. And I'm glad I didn't even really truly appreciate it. I just was that. Subconsciously I knew.
Yeah.
But that's my spooky.
Yeah. Among my spooky things, anything that happened to Eric. He gets stabbed in the eye with a needle a whole bunch. That sucked. That was spooky. He gets his hand full on
nail gun through.
Well, yeah, and then he raises his hand to stop the crowbar, and it catches a couple of his fingers and pretty much rips his hand open. The basement, I remember being absolutely fucking terrified because it was just a dark basement. That was it. And you were like, she has had all goddamn day to learn the layout, and you have to go into her territory, and you do not see Mia. That was so scary. I remember I was shaking during that scene.
Really?
When I first saw it,
yeah.
I was like, don't, man, just run.
Okay, I know you trashed on the nail gun. I liked it as a weapon.
I trashed on the nail gun because I was a Mythbusters kid growing up, and let me preface this by saying, for the love of God, do not test this.
No,
but
gosh, no.
They tested it and found that when you fire a nail gun in the air, it loses a ton of velocity.
Oh, it's not
and
practical.
it can't even, like, penetrate your skin at a certain point.
Right.
If you hold it up against someone, easily could kill them. But, like, you can't, it doesn't work like a gun where you can shoot it at someone. They don't move like that. They're horrible bullets, and they just bounce off.
Well, yeah, they're gonna lose all steam as soon as it exits the...
Because
I just like
there's no weight behind it.
Right. It doesn't use gunpowder.
So, yeah, like, immediately all the force is dispersed as soon as it touches you.
No.
Which is why you need to be pressed against it. Possibly by design.
Right.
I don't know. That's how I would design a nail gun, but
it makes sense why it would be designed like that.
There's no need to design something that could, like, punch through the wood.
Right. No, I just like the idea of it. If it could do those things, like, that's pretty funky. That's pretty new.
I don't know if it was in this movie, but I've seen movies where people are, like, reaching for a gun and someone will shoot them with the nail gun in the hand and, like, anchor it to a wall.
Yeah.
I'm just like, ugh.
Right.
But it is a cool concept.
Yeah,
That's why you need a harpoon gun.
I just like it was something I hadn't really seen.
So that's all I have for the spooky.
Good.
Why don't you tell us your vomit story, and then we'll call it for the night.
I think I've already forgotten it.
Maybe for the best. So I've covered most of my overall thoughts at this point. This movie is just a fantastic remake.
It's so good.
This is a masterclass in how you remake a franchise. It seamlessly fits with a sequel to the point where calling it a remake feels disrespectful. It's new, but it's not like... I think Ash is in like 2 seconds. I think he's a shadow in the beginning. So technically they have the original cast. Enough for an homage, but not enough, not like Scream, where it's essentially them and Jenna Ortega and friends.
I thought it was fantastic.
I'm warming up to Jenna Ortega. I still feel like she did a garbage job in Scream, but...
I like Jenna Ortega. I think she's a great actress.
Yeah, I do too. I just don't think she was a great actress in that movie. I think she bombed.
Okay. Scream was okay. Again, I said this, I think, last week or a couple weeks ago. She was great in Wednesday.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, this movie was good.
Yeah,
it's good.
So the...
Very little bit about it sucks.
So the Joey DiStasio memorial line highlight is David, as he's trying to help Natalie as she's bleeding out. He goes, "Hold on, baby. Hold on, please. Eric and I, we're gonna put a stop to this, okay? I promise everything's gonna be fine, okay?" And Eric goes, "She just cut her fucking arm off. Does that sound fine?" Dialogue was a little plain in this movie, but there was some...
It's a long quote to build to that funny line.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. Anyway,
Okay.
So why don't you hit me with your rating?
My rating is 8 out of 10 bog swamps.
Good. Yeah. Mine is an 8 out of 10 blah, 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 list. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, it's such a good movie.
This was like it was honest to God a great movie. I would rank it similar to how I ranked like Knives Out in terms of no one's gonna name any awards after the director or anything.
No.
Because this movie was made, it's not going to the Library of Congress, but it's a blast to watch. It's a great representation of the genre. It's new in all these kind of ways and old in all the classic ways.
I really feel like this is a great movie. Mm-hmm. This is a good like movie if you're like, I want to get into horror, but I'm not sure.
Okay, yes, but only if
You
only
have
if
to
you can
see it.
handle fear.
True.
If trying to get into horror, if you're like, well, I'm not scared easily,
okay.
I would watch this
No,
movie.
no, no. You've seen a few horror movies, but you want to get into the good stuff.
Yeah.
Like, this is a movie you need to check off before you hit the others. I also would recommend doing, like, original and this one, like, not back to back, but, like, relatively close to each other.
I would say it should be this movie, original movies, this movie again. That was how I watched it. That was how I gained my appreciation for this movie.
Okay.
The chronological order doesn't matter.
No.
All that matters is that you don't watch the third one first. That's literally it.
Not that third one doesn't deserve your appreciation. Just, like, you need to understand the lore.
Yeah. All right, so is that everything?
I think that's it.
So you guys might not know this, but Ashley and I are on an abandoned ship right now, and it's sinking, and we only have 10 minutes, and we spent our last 10 minutes doing this. So let's hope that the data survives. My plan is to swallow the chip and hope that they decide to give me an autopsy.
Right, and if you're hearing this unedited, you know that we did not make it, but they found the chip.
If it's edited, though,
we're good.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
Alrighty. And with that, thank you so much for listening. What are we listening to next, or what are we watching next week?
Ooh, we are having good friend of mine, David Tavares, is coming on, and we are going to be reviewing Seven. Now, I love Seven. It's a great movie. I don't know that I'd call it horror. So this is going to be our first experience with someone trying to convince us that a movie's horror.
I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
This should be fun. All right. With that, thank you everyone for listening. Please show us some support, rate, review, and subscribe. I will contradict Carter. He said last week that writing a review doesn't affect us. It does.
It doesn't affect me.
Okay. It affects us. It really does help us on the charts so that we can reach more people and keep doing what we're doing. And also check us out at horrorsucks.com and at Horror Sucks Podcast on Instagram. And I think that's it. So
stay spooky.
Horror Sucks Podcast is brought to you by Wildly Media. Edited by Ashley